My name is Elise Navarro, I'm 32 years old, and I teach high school art in San Diego. My classroom smells like acrylic and dreams, my salary is modest, and my heart is full most days. I didn't choose teaching for the paycheck. I chose it. Because nothing beats the look on a teenager's face when they realize they can create something beautiful with their own hands, and that's the same way I feel about Theo Rivera. We met at a local bakery in Pacific Beach. He made the best almond croissants I'd ever tasted. He wore a faded apron, had flour in his hair, and smiled like the world wasn't burning outside. I didn't know then that a single compliment about his pastry would turn into morning coffee dates, late-night sketching sessions, and a love so steady I didn't know where I ended and he began. But when I introduced Theo to my family, it was like lighting a match in a room soaked in gasoline. It was a Saturday brunch at my parents' house. Bianca, my older sister, arrived in full lawyer mode, power suit, designer sunglasses, and a tone that could slice through glass. She was a senior partner at a high-end Beverly Hills law firm and made sure everyone knew it. Theo wore a soft linen shirt and brought a box of handcrafted pastries, his signature move. My mother smiled politely, my father cleared his throat too often, and Bianca looked him up and down like he was a missing comma in one of her contracts. "A baker," she said, arching a perfectly sculpted eyebrow. "You mean like bread?" Theo smiled warmly. "Pastry chef, technically. But yes, croissants, tarts, cakes, the works." Bianca let out a single laugh, sharp and dry. "Elise, you went to Stanford. You teach at a charter school for gifted students. And you're dating a guy who makes muffins?" The room went silent. I felt my face flush as my hands tightened around my glass of orange juice. "He's more than his job," I said, trying to keep my voice level. "He runs the bakery, develops the menu, and manages the kitchen staff. He's also studying hospitality management at night. And most importantly, he treats me with kindness." Bianca sipped her mimosa, clearly unimpressed. "Kindness doesn't pay the mortgage, sweetheart. Or fund retirement. You don't build a future with cupcakes." Theo placed a small fruit tart on her plate, his tone gentle. "Try this one. It's got a pistachio cream base and hand-candied orange peel. Might change your mind." To her credit, she took a bite. Then she smirked. "Tastes expensive. Shame the job isn't." I felt something inside me harden. I wanted to scream, to throw the plate across the room, to tell her that success isn't always loud and wearing Armani. But I didn't. I just reached for Theo's hand beneath the table. He gave me a small squeeze, reassuring, steady. And in that moment, I knew the truth. Bianca didn't hate Theo. She hated what he represented. A life without status, without prestige, without curated LinkedIn updates, and that's exactly why I loved him, because for once, I wasn't performing. I wasn't trying to win a family debate or earn someone's approval. I was simply home. Right there, beside the man my sister called a loser. She had no idea just how wrong she was, and one day, she'd find out. It started with small things. A raised eyebrow. A silence too long to be casual. A glance between my parents that spoke volumes while saying nothing at all. After that brunch, every family gathering felt like walking into a courtroom where I was both defendant and exhibit. Bianca, of course, acted as judge, jury, and executioner. At my cousin's baby shower, she leaned over to Aunt Rosa and said, "Did you hear Elise is marrying the guy who makes cupcakes for a living?" And here I thought she'd end up in academia. At Grandpa Joe's 80th birthday, she greeted Theo with a frozen smile, then whispered loudly to my uncle, "I wonder if he knows what a 401k is." It wasn't just the comments. It was the campaign. The slow, surgical character assassination that only someone like Bianca could pull off. She didn't scream or fight. She seeded doubt like a master manipulator. It spread through my family. Like mildew, quiet, ugly, and hard to remove. My mother tried to stay neutral. She'd say things like, "As long as he makes you happy, dear," in the same tone you use when a child says they want to be a magician when they grow up. My father? Well, he stopped asking about Theo at all, and the worst part? They didn't even try to get to know him. No one asked Theo about his dreams. No one asked how we met, what we loved about each other, how he'd made me laugh through the hardest school year of my life. To them, he was a footnote. A warning. A phase I should have outgrown by now. The night Bianca called me, I was folding laundry while Theo was in the kitchen trying a new strawberry glaze. I answered without thinking. "Elise," she said, voice crisp and rehearsed. "I'm only calling you because I care." That's how you always know something toxic is coming, when someone weaponizes the word care. "You're making a huge mistake," she continued. "You have a Stanford degree, a brilliant mind, a career. And you're wasting it on a nobody with powdered sugar under his nails." I swallowed hard. Theo isn't a nobody. He's a placeholder. A distraction. A soft landing while you figure out what you really want. "Bianca, I'm marrying him." She laughed. Not loud, not cruel, worse. She laughed like she pitied me. Then I hope you enjoy splitting rent with someone who thinks an espresso machine is an investment. That night, I sat by the window watching the lights of San Diego flicker in the dark. Theo brought me tea and sat beside me, his eyes searching. Mine, rough call? I nodded. Bianca thinks you're using me. He didn't flinch. He just looked down into his mug and said, if I were rich, would she think differently? I looked at him then, really looked. His calloused hands, his tired eyes, the little burned scar on his wrist from last week's caramel mishap. I leaned into him, maybe. But that's not your problem to fix. My family wanted proof. A résumé. A price tag. But I already had all the proof I needed. His loyalty. His quiet strength. The way he saw me, not just as some overachieving little sister trying to impress the world, but as someone worth loving without condition, and someday, I promised myself, Bianca would realize she was wrong, but by then, it might be too late for apologies. The morning of my wedding, the sky was clear. A perfect San Diego breeze rustled the eucalyptus trees outside the historic chapel we'd rented for the ceremony. I should have felt calm, glowing, maybe even nervous. But all I felt was a tight knot of dread in my stomach. Theo held my hands in the bridal suite, his thumb tracing soft circles against my skin. You sure you're ready for this? He asked, half joking, half not. I nodded. I've never been more sure of anything. He smiled, that quiet, grounding smile of his. Then let's do it. Whatever happens, I've got you. The music started. The guests stood. My father whispered, you look just like your mother on our wedding day. And for a moment, the world held its breath as I stepped down the aisle. Theo was waiting at the altar in a tailored navy suit, hair brushed back, his usual quiet confidence wrapped around him like a second skin. His eyes lit up the second he saw me, and everything else faded, the pews, the whispers, even the nervous flutter in my chest, until I heard it. A voice, sharp, unmistakable, cut through the silence like a blade. Stop. Gasps rippled through the chapel. I froze mid-step. Bianca, she was standing up, her red dress a warning flare in the sea of soft florals and pastel dresses. Her heels clacked like gunshots as she stepped into the aisle. You can't let her do this. She cried, pointing a trembling hand toward Theo. He's lying to you, Elise. He's a fraud. My heart thundered in my ears. The officiant's voice faltered. My mother sat frozen, her mouth slightly open. My father stood, face stone still. Someone in the second row let out an awkward cough. Theo didn't move. He just looked at her, calm, steady, almost sad. I took a deep breath. My veil shook slightly as I stepped forward. Bianca, sit down. She shook her head. No. I won't watch my sister ruin her life over some baker with a fake smile and no real future. You think this is love? You're being used. Manipulated. He's marrying up, you're the stepping stone. I felt my voice rise before I could. Stop it. This is my wedding. You've made your opinion clear, now leave. You'll regret this, she spat. When you're broke, exhausted, and wondering why your dreams never came true, don't say I didn't warn you. Theo's jaw clenched. Still, he didn't respond. Not one insult. Not one word. The silence after she stormed out was unbearable. Her heels echoed off the stone floor until the doors slammed shut behind her. The officiant looked at me. Shall we continue? I looked at Theo. He held out his hand. I'm here, he said quietly. Only if you still want me. I nodded. My throat burned, but my voice was steady. More than anything. And just like that, we carried on. No longer the perfect day. But maybe something better, something real. We exchanged vows with hearts still shaking, rings with hands still trembling. As I said I do, I saw an empty seat where Bianca should have been. And for the first time since childhood, I didn't feel like I had to chase her approval, because as broken as that moment had been, it proved something crystal clear. I knew the man I was marrying, and she never did. The wedding reception was held at a venue Theo had picked himself, a place I'd never seen in person, only in magazines and Instagram reels under hashtags like #luxury dining and #impossible reservations. Rivera Estate, nestled on a private hilltop overlooking the Pacific, it was known for three things: its 11-month wait list, its strict members-only policy, and the fact that no one hosted weddings there. Not unless you were, say, royalty or family. When we pulled up in the vintage Jaguar Theo's friend had driven us in, I could see the ripple through the guests. Phones slipped discreetly out of purses. Gasps. Are we in the right place? Murmurs passed between confused cousins and impressed aunts. The glass doors shimmered in the setting sun, opening into a lobby lined with white oak, brushed gold, and floor-to-ceiling views of the ocean. A string quartet played softly in the corner, and staff in white gloves passed out champagne as if it grew on trees. Still, none of that compared to what came next. Bianca arrived in a silk emerald dress. Makeup flawless, strut as sharp as ever. I could tell by her expression that she was ready to reclaim the spotlight, perhaps with one last condescending toast or a few whispered jabs. But the moment she stepped into the main hall, she froze, because on the far wall, above the bar, was an engraved crest, Rivera Culinary Group, EST 1978. The Rivera name. Theo's name, her eyes darted. First to the logo, then to the maitre d', bowing respectfully to Theo and calling him Mr. Rivera. Then to the framed photos lining the hallway, portraits of famous chefs, international awards, and right in the center, Luis Rivera, founder of the global culinary empire that bore his name. Then he appeared, Luis Rivera, distinguished, silver-haired, with a presence that hushed the room like a king entering court. He walked up to us and extended his arms. "My grandson," he said, embracing Theo, then turning to me with a warm smile. "And his brilliant bride. What an honor to welcome you to the Rivera family, Elise." He said it loud enough for everyone to hear. The ripple it caused was instant: gasps, stunned whispers, glasses lowered mid-toast. Bianca dropped her clutch. "You," she stammered, her voice suddenly small. "You're his grandfather?" Luis turned to her, calm but firm. "You must be Elise's sister. I've heard much about you." Bianca's face paled. I didn't know that my grandson was more than just a pastry chef," he asked smoothly. "He wanted it that way. We both did." The room went silent. "We believe," Luis continued, "that love should be chosen without resume qualifications. That titles and wealth mean nothing if the heart is hollow. Theo didn't want to bring someone into this life unless they saw him for who he truly is. Flower and all." Theo stepped beside me, taking my hand gently. "And Elise saw me before any of this." Bianca stood there, trembling, the color draining from her face like spilled wine. She said you were using her," Luis added, his voice now edged with steel. "That marrying my grandson was a downgrade. That he was, what was the word?" He looked at her. "A loser?" Bianca tried to speak. "Failed," Luis continued. "It takes a certain kind of arrogance to assume someone's worth based solely on what they wear, what they earn, or where they work. I'm proud my grandson doesn't carry himself like a billionaire. I'm even prouder he chose someone who doesn't need him to." Applause broke out from a few tables. Quiet at first. Then louder. A room full of people who had silently judged now realized they had backed the wrong side. Bianca stood motionless, her mouth pressed into a thin line. Her eyes shimmered, but not from joy. Theo leaned toward her, voice low. "If you'd asked, I would have told you. But you never wanted to know me. You just wanted to win." She said nothing. Just turned slowly, heels echoing like fading thunder as she walked out into the night, and as I stood in the middle of Rivera Estate, hand in hand with the man she once mocked, I realized something simple but unshakable: the best revenge isn't loud. It's living beautifully, while those who doubted you watch from the sidelines, too late to catch up. Exactly 1 year to the day after she interrupted my wedding, Bianca Navarro showed up at my doorstep, soaked, shaking, and stripped of every illusion she had ever built around her name. It was raining hard that night, sheets of water hammering the windows of our penthouse overlooking the bay. Theo was in the kitchen prepping croissants for a staff tasting the next morning. I was curled on the couch, grading student art portfolios. When the doorbell rang, it startled both of us. I opened the door to find Bianca, but not the Bianca I knew. Her once perfect hair hung in wet clumps against her cheeks. Her designer coat was missing, replaced by a drenched blazer that clung to her like regret. No heels. No makeup. No car in sight. "Elise," she croaked, voice trembling. "They took everything." Theo appeared behind me. His expression didn't change, calm, unreadable, but I saw the flicker in his eyes. Caution. Memory. We let her in. She collapsed onto the entryway bench, water pooling around her. I handed her a towel, and for a long time, she said nothing. Then finally, "Michael's been arrested." I sat beside her, heart pounding. Michael, her high-powered finance husband, the man she once bragged knew senators and owned 3 condos in Manhattan. The man she married for the portfolio, not the partnership. "SEC raid," she whispered. "Insider trading. Stock manipulation. They froze all our assets. The house is gone. The accounts are gone. I have nothing left." My mouth was dry. "What? About your firm?" "I resigned. Publicly. Everyone thinks I was in on it." Her voice cracked. "My so-called friends won't even return my texts. My credit cards have been cancelled. I've been sleeping in my car for 2 nights. Theo crossed his arms slowly, leaning against the wall. "Why come here?" She didn't answer right away. Just stared at the steam rising from the cup of tea I'd placed in her shaking hands, because I didn't know where else to go. There was something raw in her eyes, no defense, no pride, just devastation. A woman who'd built her life on polished surfaces and pedigree, now sitting in a puddle of ruin. I looked at Theo. He looked at me. We'll figure something out, I said carefully. For tonight, you can stay in the guest room. But this? I gestured gently. This isn't a reset button. It's a chance. And it has to mean something. She nodded, eyes glassy. I understand. And at that moment, I believed her. Not because I trusted her again, not yet. But because only. Someone truly broken knocks on the door they once slammed, and I had enough heart left to open it. The next morning, Bianca woke up in the guest room looking like someone who had fought a hurricane, and lost. She shuffled into the kitchen in an oversized sweatshirt I had left on the nightstand, eyes puffy, lips pale. For once, she didn't speak first. I poured her coffee and handed her a plate of Theo's sourdough toast with almond butter and banana slices. His way of showing care without words. We have a proposal, I said gently. Bianca glanced at Theo, then at me. Her expression was tight with suspicion. There's an open position at Riviera Estate, I continued. Entry level. Dishwashing, cleaning, assisting the line cooks. She flinched. You want me to wash dishes? Theo didn't flinch. It's how I started. Every Rivera works every position. If you want help, it has to start there. There was a long silence. I could see the war in her eyes. The disbelief. The ego is screaming. But then, she nodded. I'll do it, she whispered. If that's the only way. It wasn't just a job. It was a reckoning. Her first shift started the next morning at 5:45 a.m. Theo gave her a uniform, black slacks, a plain shirt, non-slip shoes, and walked her into the back kitchen with no special treatment. No announcements. She stood stiffly between two college students rinsing baking trays, blinking like she had landed on another planet. The staff knew who she was. But no one spoke of it. By noon, her hands were red and raw from scrubbing. She dropped a stack of pans and nearly cried when the head chef, Marisol, barked, "Pick it up, rookie. That pen costs more than your manicure." Bianca didn't answer. She picked it up. The first week, she spilled soup. Forgot to label containers. Got scolded for wiping stainless steel the wrong way. Her face went crimson every time, but she stayed. By the second week, she stopped complaining about the heat. She tied her hair back without fuss. I caught her once helping a new hostess carry a tray without being asked. In week 3, she earned a nod from Marisol, silent, but unmistakable respect. That same day, a regular customer spilled a drink. Bianca rushed over with a towel before anyone else. Not out of obligation, but instinct. Slowly, something shifted. The woman who used to scoff at blue-collar labor was now arriving early, double-checking supply lists, volunteering for closing shifts. Her posture softened. Her voice lowered. Her eyes, once laser-focused on winning, started noticing other people's burdens. One night, I stayed late to help with inventory and saw her bandaging a new dishwasher's finger after he nicked it. By slicing lemons. She didn't announce it. She just did it. Theo leaned beside me, arms crossed. She's changing. I see it, I whispered, and I did. Not just in how she worked, but in how she looked at herself. She was rebuilding, not with resumes or references, but with sweat, humility, and the silent weight of every plate she carried. Bianca Navarro, once the queen of corporate boardrooms, was learning what dignity looked like at the bottom rung, and for the first time, I saw in her something more powerful than pride: growth. 3 months after she scrubbed her first dish, Bianca Navarro became the evening shift manager at Riviera Estate. It didn't come with a speech. No banner. No formal ceremony. Just a printed schedule taped on the kitchen wall with her name next to the title, shift lead, but it was real. Earned. Undeniable. Now, Bianca arrived before most of the staff. She knew which regulars liked their wine chilled just below room temp, who was allergic to sesame, who had just lost a parent and needed extra kindness. She trained new hires patiently, checked in with servers before peak hours, and stayed late to double-check prep lists. She still carried herself with poise, but it wasn't arrogance anymore. It was grace forged from humility. One crisp Saturday evening, I visited her after closing. She lived in the modest apartment above the restaurant now, 2 rooms, 1 window, and a potted basil plant on the sill. The same woman who once scorned anything without marble countertops now smiled as she handed me a mug of ginger tea and lit a small candle on the coffee table. "This place is tiny," she said with a soft laugh. "But I sleep better here than I ever did in a 4-bedroom house." We sat cross-legged on her faded rug, the silence between us finally comfortable. "I was so wrong, Elise," she said, her voice low but steady. "I spent my life chasing last names, logos, and headlines. Now I greet people by their first name and remember their drink orders. And I feel more human than I ever did in a courtroom." I reached for her hand, gave it a light squeeze. "I always believed you'd get here. I just didn't know how far you'd have to fall first." She smiled, not defensive this time, but deeply moved. I used to chase names, Bianca whispered. Eyes shining. Now. I make meaning. That night, as we hugged goodbye beneath the stairwell, I realized something beautiful had happened. She hadn't just learned how to work, she'd learned how to see. And more importantly, she'd learned how to stay.